I was talking to a friend this week, and she said that she had picked up her toddler from camp, and he hit her. And when she said to him, that wasn't a good choice, he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Tshuva!" Tshuva, repentance. 3.5. Pretty fabulous. My kids never yelled tshuva at the top of their lungs when they made a mistake, and I certainly can promise you that I never have either. But we are in that zone now, in the climb towards High Holy Days. Only a week from tomorrow night we'll begin Rosh Chodesh Elul. And this week's Torah portion, Ekev, has its own call. It begins, V'haya ekev tishma'un et hamishpatim ha'ela, ushmartem v'asitem otam. And if you do obey these rules and observe them carefully, your God Adonai will maintain faithfully for you the covenant made an oath with your fathers. Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov says, the word used here, if you heard at the beginning, if, but you didn't hear the word im, you heard the word ekev, which is the name of the parasha, ekev, which not only means if in this case, but it also is understood as heel. Like the word Yaakov, the name Yaakov comes from the notion of heel. So, of course, the rabbis make meaning out of that idea, and Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov says, a person must listen to every step which they take and examine whether they are fulfilling God's wishes with that step. He's talking about the idea of if you listen to God's voice, it is connected to the heel, meaning the steps you take. That's the connection, which is a simple idea, right? That each step we take, we're having to pay attention to what we're being asked of or what God is calling us to do. But if you think about this small or little idea more deeply, you see that it contains actually a lot of ideas in it. First of all, the ekev is not a guarantee. It's not guaranteed that we're going to listen, that we're even going to hear the call of God, the moral call, the call of the moment. And another idea that's built into this notion is that every step we take is not inevitable, right? We're not necessarily walking only one path, and when you are attentive to the call, it means you might stop and choose differently. And so it's not like, New Yorkers are known as being fast walkers. Imagine if we had to pay attention to the call at every step, how it would slow us down. And in fact, on Shabbat, you're supposed to walk more slowly. Your strides are supposed to be longer because, in a sense, you're being attentive to the call of God on Shabbat. The power each step has a choice in some way, metaphorically, that we're not just on a treadmill, even though we may feel that way. But the attentiveness of this idea is that we should think about our life as not being on a treadmill, but that each step we take is a choice. Also, built into this idea is that there is no guarantee that we're on the right path, and such self-assertion is actually an illusion. If we think that we heard God's call yesterday and we think that's going to be a straight path, we can live with that certainty, but this idea that at each step we have to pay attention to the call is the recognition that the call might change, which means we might need to change and choose differently. And the same is true if we're off the derech. If we're off the path, then by listening we can get on again. We're not permanently off. The call changes as we walk. And every step in some way, according to this idea, I think, puts a question before us each time to rethink, to re-listen, and to also question our own certainty. Later in the parasha in chapter 11, a similar statement is made with the typical word we hear for if, with V'haya im shamoa tishma'u el mitzvotai. If you hearken, yes, hearken to my commandments. You hear the doubling, im shamoa tishma'u, the shema, if you listen. And the commentaries note also, this is a mirroring of the beginning of the parasha with Akev, right? The same idea. And the Svat Emet says that the notion of the doubling is the fact that if you hear, the first hearing refers to the raising of that voice of God, to actually be willing to listen. And the second hearing is our hearing and accepting of the command, right? First is, and if you think about that toddler, right, he heard tshuva, but she said he didn't apologize, so he didn't do the second part, which is to say, I'm sorry, right? There's two hearings. One is how we are actually listening at all, and the second is, are we implementing the impact of that listening? We're living in a world, I feel like every week we say this, so many big problems, it's profoundly overwhelming to even pick up the paper in the morning or listen to a podcast about the news, whether it's here in our own country and the National Guard being in DC, or what's happening in Israel and Gaza. Our hearts are broken and broken over and over again, and the sense of despair and hopelessness is profound. And if you think about this idea of Akev, the heel, we're in a space where there's a lot of digging in our heels to where we are and to stay exactly where we are committed to be without thinking about what might we question, what might we change, what is and isn't inevitable, and whether anyone out there really wants to listen to anyone else but what's in their own mind and heart and head. As opposed to digging our heels in this moment, perhaps you want to take the invitation of Akev to ponder, what if we listened for a higher calling? What if we questioned whether we were really on the right path, not just as individuals, but as a Jewish people, as a country? And whether we might overcome our fear, and what steps we might need to take to listen to what God might need of us in this moment, who the Jewish people needs to be in this moment, and what we might need of ourselves and of each other. The toddler called tshuva tshuva, but it would be profound to be able to hear a call not only of tshuva, but to hear the scream of love in the world, and to hear the voice of morality being asserted in our ears, and the possibility of peace echo in our hearts, and the voice of justice ringing like an echo in our ears, and the profound idea of dignity calling us up and asking us to step and walk differently, and thinking also about what it means to compromise, and what it means to walk forward with faith and truth for the sake of that voice that beckons to us. Let us listen to the call, and may that still small voice of God in this most auspicious time as we make our way towards the month of Elul and the High Holy Days, even if it's that still small voice of God, or perhaps it's the loud voice of a screaming toddler, let those voices guide our steps. Shabbat Shalom.